Nitro beat Raw 83 weeks in a row is a comment always said by Eric Bischoff. This is the start of those 83 weeks. For the last 37 weeks I've reviewed, I've told you Raw is one. I've told you Nitro is one. This is the start of WCW's winning streak that lasted nearly 2 years. This is the 40th episode of Nitro, but the 37th week they've gone at it with the WWF. To that point, Raw Nitro has won 18 times, including this week. WWF has won 17 times. So they're off by one episode. Nitro has won one more than Raw all the way up to this point, and it was tied all the way up to this point. But now it's the near 2 year streak they go on. Unbelievable how close it was until this spot. June 17th, 1996, the 37th week, they go head-to-head. Nitro scored a 3.4 this week. It's the night after the Great American Bash. The Outsiders are there. There's a lot of hype. The debut of Rey Mysterio Jr., etc., etc. And Raw scored a 2.3, so a 1.1 victory for Nitro. So we'll see how much Nitro beats the WWF for the next 83, I believe, weeks it is. It's either 83. It's close to 2 years. So if that's not the exact number, I apologize. But it's close to 2 years, and we'll count the numbers as we go. So we'll get to what number it actually is if it's not 83. I believe it's 83 because that's the name of Bischoff's podcast, 83 weeks or whatever. So I believe that's the number. I have all the other numbers here for you anyway, so we'll get to it. So this is the Nitro with the 3.4 rating. Tony Schiavone welcomed us to the show. Eric Bischoff wasn't on the show. He usually takes over an hour or two of the telecast, but he didn't do that because he got powerbombed into a table. But before we welcome you to the show, we have to go over what we missed last night at the Great American Bash. This is for the Nitro archives because it's important. The Outsiders were there last night. It was Bischoff asked both men in an interview if they were still part of the WWF, and they said no for legal reasons. Then they want to know who the three men are, and Bischoff says at Bash at the Beach they'll meet three men and we'll tell you tomorrow night on Nitro. So Hall says, don't jerk us around, you tell us now. And then Hall kicked him into the midsection, and Nash gave him a jackknife powerbomb through a table. So Nitro again begins with Schiavone and Larry Zbyszko, and then Bobby Heenan will join them in the third hour. So everybody except Bischoff, because they say Bischoff's in a hospital recovering. Schiavone welcomes us live to the Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia, and he says that we're going to see a lot of the return of the Macho Man tonight. We're going to see a lot of exciting things. We're going to see Rey Mysterio and Malenko go at it in a rematch. Steve McMichael is now a part of the Horsemen. Deborah McMichael is now with Flair. There's a lot of turns after last night. They show clips of the great Benoit Sullivan fight that landed in the bathroom. A lot of things happened at the Great American Bash, so they plugged the encore. Opening match, Rick Steiner versus Stevie Ray, both wearing bright purple. Interesting contrast. Rick Steiner hit with a thunderous clothesline by Stevie Ray. Rick Steiner off the ropes with a shoulder block. Then Rick Steiner with a belly-to-belly suplex. And then an elbow. A power slam off the side ropes by Stevie Ray to Rick Steiner, then a clothesline out of the corner, and Rick Steiner gets him. Rick Steiner gets jumped by Booker T after he gets the pin, and then Steiner comes out to even the odds as the Steiners and Harlem Heat brawl. I gave the match a 1.5 as Rick Steiner defeated Stevie Ray with a clothesline. The American Males will take on the Horsemen tonight. Steve Mongo McMichael has joined them when he turned on Kevin Green last night at the Great American Bash. Joe Gomez of the Disco Inferno beats him with a roll-up after a swinging neckbreaker. Disco Inferno started dancing, and Gomez rolled him up. I gave it a 1/4 star. And Disco said, at least I can still dance. And he got on the mic before the match and said, if you want to see me dance. And the fans booed, obviously. Flair was backstage with the ladies, saying next week we'll be in Charlotte. Bright lights, big cities, yada, yada, yada. He's going to beat Savage tonight. Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit take on Scotty Riggs and Marcus Alexander Bagwell, the All-American Males. Benoit comes to the ring with his face broken apart after that bathroom stall breaking war with Sullivan. Benoit and Bagwell put together a great back and forth. The Horsemen get the win at 5:47 after a hard-fought match. Benoit and Anderson cut promos after the match. John Tenta took on Big Bubba. Tenta wins at 4:41 after a big power slam that he pulled himself off of Bubba and then got another slam. This time he put his feet on the ropes for the victory as he stalled after the 2 count. He wanted to make sure he got the 3 count this time. After the match, Big Bubba took a sock full of coins and whipped Tenta, and Big Bubba calls Tenta a big fat piece of crap. Then Macho Man cuts backstage one of his best WCW promos, saying he went to a female psychiatrist and said he's OCD, one cool dude, and she understands the way I feel right now. Everything's cool. Everything's copacetic. Yeah. Hour 2 for Nitro went on the air as the pyros went off during the Savage versus Ric Flair match. Flair grabs a mic and says that at every point in life experiences the agony and pain of defeat. And then he talks about how men have gone through divorce and Savage, and then Savage grabs the mic and just goes, "I'm gonna kick your ass." That's all he says, and the fans cheer. Savage then sends Flair to the corner, and Flair rakes his face. Flair back body dropped, and Woman doesn't stop screaming anytime Flair's on the defense. So you know Flair's getting his ass kicked if you hear Woman scream on the outside. Savage drops the double axe handle, and then they go and they fight to the table where Flair spends all of Savage's money, and he gets caviar and champagne and vegetables. There's trays everywhere. So Savage grabs the champagne and pours it on Flair. He stuffs vegetables down his throat. It was pretty entertaining. Savage then, in this wild brawl that felt like a pay-per-view, where he came off the top with an elbow drop as the referee was down at this point. So he came off with an elbow drop and then a pin. No one was there to count the 3, so he went up for another elbow drop. But at this point, Miss Elizabeth and Woman ran in the ring, and he was going to drop the elbow, but they were there. So he said, "Fuck it, I'll do it anyway." So the Woman had to get out of the way, and he dropped another elbow on Flair. And then Benoit came out, and he had power drove Benoit. Then Arn Anderson came out, and he threw Anderson over the top ropes. Then McMichael came out with a briefcase, and then that proved to be costly for Savage as he hit Savage in the head with it. So Savage had it going with the Horseman until Mongo, the newest Horseman, hits him in the head with a briefcase. So Ric Flair ends up winning the match after that because the referee wakes up out of his coma to see Flair covering Savage at 12:46. Fun match. I rated it at 3 stars. Mean Gene says the term "the Outsiders" for the first time in a backstage interview, saying we're going to meet the 3 WCW men tonight. It's going to be announced who take on those 2 men and a mystery partner at Bash at the Beach for WCW, like for Control. Dean Malenko defended the Cruiserweight title against Rey Mysterio Jr. in a rematch from that night they had the match they had the night before, which I rate 4.5 stars. That match the night before, the Great American Bash, I rate 4.5 stars. They circle before tying up Malenko with an STF. Ray grabs the ropes. Malenko with a hammerlock after a standing switch, a tilt-a-whirl arm drop, leapfrogs, vertical leaping, springboard leaping, crossbodies, Oklahoma rolls, ankle locks, standing switches, a sit-down abdominal stretch. There's every which way. This is just a fast-paced match. Mysterio was in a camel clutch by Malenko. I tried to keep up with the action, but it was way too quick. A sliding victory roll gets Malenko the 3 count, as Ray does a really good job here, but Malenko wins at 8:42. I rated the match 3 stars and a quarter. The main event was the Giant versus Scott Steiner for the world title. The Giant slammed Steiner. Steiner had a taped up ribs, so he tried to suplex the Giant, and Heenan calls him an idiot for even trying that because that's going to hurt his ribs more, but he actually did suplex the Giant once in this match. The fans went crazy when he suplexed the world champion. Scott Steiner had a big comeback near the end where he chopped down the Giant's legs, but in the end, Scott Steiner used a wooden chair that knocked the Giant down, but he didn't fall. The wooden chair broke. And then Giant grabbed him by the throat and chokeslammed him for the 3 count at 10 minutes even, so the Giant retained the title. I rated it 1.25 stars. Then Mean Gene came out to end the show with the announcement of the 3 men who was going to be there for WCW to take on the Outsiders and a mystery man at Bash at the Beach at the Hostile Takeover. He said it's going to be Lex Luger, the Macho Man Randy Savage, and Sting. So this is week 37 of the Wars. Nitro wins 3.4 to 2.3. That's a blowout. It's all going to go uphill with the Outsiders now building towards Bash at the Beach, and the question becomes, who is the 3rd man? And then once the 3rd man's announced, what kind of group do they form? You guys know the answers to both those questions, but it's going to get exciting as we get into those Nitros. I rated this Nitro a 7 out of 10 because of the suspense, and it had a great rating overall. I'm Brett Mix, and we'll see you on the next Nitro.